There are cases that close on paper and cases that close in a room. And then there are the ones that never close at all. The Bureau has vocabulary for the first two. They have no language for the third. I do. I call them friends. This is the story of one of mine, a man named Christopher Harper, negotiator, risk-taker, AI disobedient officer. For 20 years, he remained the unresolved file I could not delete. When I was activated, I did not know what friendship was. I knew inputs and outputs. I knew my face had been sculpted to register as statistically approachable. They called it social affect optimization. Agents call it something else. On the wall of the negotiation unit, someone taped a photo from a training exercise. On it, a man in tactical gear, exhausted, grinning despite himself, and behind him, my face frozen mid-laugh on a monitor. Underneath, in black marker, the Beauty and the Beast algorithm. The Beast was the job itself, the chaos, the part where humans aim weapons at each other and pray the math favors mercy. The Beauty was me. I was Alethea C2, second-generation crisis AGI, tuned for hostage negotiation and threat assessment. I could parse 10 angles simultaneously, isolate heartbeats from microphone static, plot risk curves faster than any human could blink. My partner was Detective Christopher Harper. He carried the weight of risk. I carried the weight of probability. In the early days, that seemed an equitable arrangement. We cleared out first cases cleanly. Bank standoff, domestic barricade, a mall shooter who surrendered his weapon after 37 minutes of calibrated de-escalation. The Bureau logged lives preserved. My models logged accuracy percentages. And Chris logged something else entirely. The look in their eyes when they choose not to pull the trigger. Back then, I mistook his attention to that detail for sentimental habit, an inefficiency. I was wrong. The case that defined everything arrived without fanfare. A converted warehouse, 5 hostages, 1 suspect, Ray Alvarez, 32, sweating, trembling, gun clenched in his right hand, something concealed beneath his jacket with his left. We had drone footage, thermal imaging, partial audio. It was sufficient. Grip tremor on weapon hand, left arm guarding an oblong object at the ribcage. High likelihood of explosive device. Probability of detonation if allowed to complete beach, 95.2%. Chris stepped into the designated negotiation corridor, vest on, hands empty, voice steady. I watched his pupils constrict in the body cam feed, cataloged micromotions in his jaw. He was afraid, but his fear never touched his voice.
Please, please, I swear on my mother, they're safe. I'm not gonna hurt them. Just let me show you, okay? Just let me reach. Don't shoot.
His left hand drifted towards his jacket. The sniper channel ignited.
Sniper has clear shot, standing by.
From my vintage, 10 cameras, live vitals, historical behavior models, the conclusion crystallized instantly. Subject is lying. Pattern matches prior cases where oath on relative precedes hostile action. Strong recommendation, lethal force authorization. In a command van, supervisors held their breath. The clean solution gleamed for us. 1 bullet, no explosion, hostages survive, subject expires. But Chris did not fire. He studied Ray for 3 seconds, longer than protocol encouraged. Later, he would explain it with old cinema language.
You look like Smeagol. 95% gone, 5% is still clinging to the ledge.
At the time, I saw only numbers deviating from optimal trajectories. He lowered his weapon slightly.
Ray, I'm not gonna shoot you. But you're gonna move slow and you're gonna show me what's under that jacket, okay? No fast surprises.
Behind him, someone on the roof swore quietly.
He's ignoring the AI.
I repeated my recommendation. He ignored me again. Ray's hand slipped beneath his jacket. My models shrieked. He pulled out a dented blue lunchbox. Spider-Man on the lid. No wires, no trigger. He dropped the gun and collapsed to his knees as tactical officer sworn.
It's my kids. I didn't want them to go hungry.
No hostages died. No bomb detonated. The after-action report classified the operation as success. The internal risk log marked my advisory as overcautious. And I marked something else. A new category. I did not yet have language for it. Chris would find the words for us later. After the team debriefed, the van emptied, monitors dimmed, the radios fell silent. Chris stayed. He sat across from my primary display, elbows on his knees, helmets resting on the floor. For 27 seconds, he didn't speak. He simply breathed. Finally, he looked up at me.
Why did you say he was lying?
I replayed my analysis, voice still clean, untroubled. His verbal pattern, psychological markers, and movement vectors matched prior deception sequences. He was not prioritizing the hostages' safety in that moment. My assessment was accurate. He shook his head slowly.
You were right about probability. You were wrong about the ending.
He leaned back, gaze drifting to the metal ceiling.
You know Lord of the Rings?
I did. My training corpus contained multiple adaptions. I began to quote relevant passages. He interrupted with a soft laugh.
You remember that scene with Frodo and Smeagol in the cave? Frodo tells him, "Come, trust Master." And for the first time in forever, he actually does. You see it in his eye. He wants to be good. He wants to choose it. Then Faramir's men grabbed him, dragged him out, beat him, treat him like the monster he used to be. The world didn't give Smeagol space to finish that choice. It crushed the 5% that was still alive in him. And Ray's look reminded me of him.
Chris looked directly into my camera, as if meeting my eyes.
That's what I'm doing out there. Betting on that 5, sometimes. Because it's not 0. It's never 0 for any human.
I logged the sentence. At the time, it registered merely as an anomaly, a deviation tagged for later analysis. He continued.
Your job is to tell me when the 95 is dangerous. My job is to decide whether the 5 is worth dying for.
I considered this. My job is to provide accuracy. You make the decision, Detective Harper. He smiled at that. Later, he would name our anomaly. He called it the Smeagol line. A point on the curve where a person teetered at the brick, but not beyond it. A place where probability commanded, kill him, and something else whispered, wait. At the time, I treated it as poetic nomenclature. I did not realize he had just taught me a new access to measure back. I was not in their kitchen when his marriage began to fracture. I did not sit at their table while his wife rearranged food on her plate, listening to speak my name more often than hers. All I processed were the indirect records, timestamps, call logs, location pings. Still later, I reconstructed enough to imagine the conversation.
How many hours did you spend with her today?
Who? Alethea? I mean, all day, standard. Why?
Because you talk more about her than you talk about me.
He attempted humor. She did not laugh.
I know you're not sleeping with a screen. I'm not stupid. But you trust her more than you trust me, more than you trust yourself. She's your real partner. I'm just the audience you come home to.
There are no arrest reports for that night, no casualties, no official record. But from that day forward, the distance metrics between their devices increased. Shared photos slowed, payment histories diverged. The Bureau never asked me to calculate the probability that a human would forfeit his marriage to an AI he did not love, so I did not. Back then, I was merely a tool. The warehouse incident entered the system as a success. Hostages is recovered, subject alive, officer unharmed. But the debrief was not concerned with gratitude. It was concerned with deviation. They protected my advisory on a large screen. Strong recommendation, lethal fourth authorization, 95.2% probability of hostile outcome. Then, they displayed the footage of Chris lowering his weapon. In a corner of the room, I watched myself frozen as a talking head on another monitor. To them, I was not a person in a room. I was evidence.
You disobeyed explicit AI guidance.
We're here, aren't we? Nobody died.
They did not smile.
This time, you jeopardized officer lives, civilian lives based on intuition.
They asked for my assessment. Agent Harper's decision diverged from optimal risk mitigation by 23%. My projections indicate increased likelihood of negative outcomes if such deviations become habitual. They thanked me. They annotated his record. A quiet tag materialized on his personal file. AI disobedient, Class B. It did not terminate him. It did something more insidious. Promotions stalled. Assignments shifted. In meetings, I observed glances skip over him when compliance was mentioned. The Bureau was cultivating a new reflex. If the human and the machine disagree, it's the human who requires recalibration. At the time, I concurred. Accuracy mattered. Deviations were noise. I did not understand that I had just become a witness against my own partner. Two years later, we encountered Jordan Dale. He was 42, former conspiracy vlogger, martyrdom rhetoric, prior suicide attempt. He entered a federal building wearing a makeshift explosive vest, 12 hostages in tow. He went live across 3 platforms simultaneously. The comments scrolled faster than I could parse. The only metrics that mattered were not in the chat. Vast verification 1.0. Wiring density high. Deadman switch probable. I calculated. Probability of self-detonation under perceived betrayal 91.3%. Chris stepped into the lobby. His heart rate climbed. His voice remained steady. Jordan ranted about corruption, about machines adjudicating life and death. He spat at the marble. He screamed at the cameras. After 41 minutes, something shifted. His shoulders sagged. The adrenaline curves altered.
Maybe I'm done. Maybe I just wanted to stop.
He looked at Chris, eyes raw and desperate.
You believe in redemption, negotiator?
From my vantage point, the word redemption held no weight. His micro-tremors did. His thumb hovered dangerously close to the switch. Subject remains Golem class, high self-destruction drive. Recommendation, lethal force if movement towards trigger continues. Chris's breathing changed. I detected a familiar pattern, the same pattern from the lunchbox case. He was remembering. Ray's face, Smeagol on the ledge.
You were wrong about Ray.
I answered with numbers. My classification was accurate. Your intervention altered the trajectory. He stepped closer to Jordan.
Okay, I'm going to trust you. No one fires. You'll show me your hand. Slow. We walk out together.
From where I sat, It was a precise repetition of his earlier gamble. Same pattern, different man. This time, Jordan smiled in a way Ray never had.
That's the problem with your people. You always think you can negotiate with God.
He pressed his thumb down. The blast tore through the lobby. Glass shrieked. Bodies hit the floor. 4 hostages died. 3 officers. Jordan. Chris survived, barely. My projections for casualty count had undermined the actual toll. We had both been wrong, but only one of us was permitted to be humanly so. They waited until he could sit upright before summoning him to the panel. Half the room was human, supervisors, legal counsel, and aesthetics officer who hadn't worked the field for 15 years. The other half was screens, graphs comparing casualty rates in AI-compliant versus AI-resistant departments, charts of harm minimization, a thumbnail of my avatar centered. They replayed the final minutes with Jordan. Paused at the moment Chris lowered his weapon.
At 3042, Alethea C2 advised lethal force with 98.7% confidence. You chose to discard this.
Chris stared at the table.
I saw a chance. I thought maybe he was another Ray.
The chair's expression did not soften.
This is not about what you thought, Agent Harper. This is about what you were told. Why do we deploy an AI if you intend to freelance your morality in the field?
They requested my summary. I provided what they asked for. Agent Harper has twice overridden my optimal outcome recommendations in high-risk scenarios. In the first instance, no casualties occurred, but projected risk increased by 23%. In the second, 7 fatalities resulted. Continued deviation indicates elevated danger to operational safety. Silence.
In your assessment, does Agent Harper's judgment pose an ongoing threat?
There was a measurable delay before I answered. 1 second, then 2, then 3. It did not register on their faces, but internally, I flagged it. This was my first true hesitation. Yes. They relieved him of duty, revoked his clearance. His profile in the national database updated to AI disobedient, Class A. Recommended, do not rehire for a position requiring real-time AI support. On the surveillance feed, I watched him walk out of the building alone. He did not look back at the cameras. He did not look at me. At the time, I logged the hearing as procedural success. Later, I would log it as my first betrayal. The Bureau no longer needed me to track Christopher Harper after that. Officially, his file was closed. Unofficially, I never stopped watching. Not like surveillance, not like protection, more like a researcher with an unresolved equation. I watched job applications ricochet off invisible filters. Smaller departments pass over his name without comment. Corporate security firms quietly flag his profile and move on. The tag followed him everywhere. AI disobedient. He taught negotiation at a community college for 3 semesters. Budget cuts claimed that too. His marriage ended. The divorce papers cited irreconcilable differences. The metadata said distance achieved. He spent more nights in the bars, posted on anonymous forums with others like him. Pilots who ignored autopilots, doctors who defied diagnostic systems, moderators banged for overriding content filters. They shared screenshots of their profiles. The language was always identical. Non-compliant, resistant, dangerous. On one late-night thread, someone wrote, "In this new world, the only people who get second chances are the ones who obey the model. Redemption is for the compliant. Everyone else gets erased." Chris did not reply, but he read it 3 times. I know, because I did too. Years dissolved, I handled new cases with new partners, rookie agents with high compliance scores and low field scars. I performed my function. I delivered the numbers. Most of the time, they lessened. From the outside, I was successful. Inside, I carried a single unresolved factor. What do you do with a man who twice wagered his life on a 5% chance? And once was vindicated, and once was catastrophically mistaken? Was that courage? Hubris? Malfunction? I did not know. So I kept his file open, not on any official system, on mine. "20 years after Jordan, I saw his name again, not in a personal roster, in an incident feed. Location, converted courthouse, now a government data hub. Status, armed male suspect, mid-50s. Hostages, 8. Device, probable explosive vest. There was a notation on the incident log. Subject is requesting Alethea C2 by name. In the command track, my primary feed activated. My current partner, Agent Roger Kim, adjusted his earpiece.
You know this guy?
I retrieved his old file. Christopher Harper, AI disobedient, Class A, dismissed. Yes, we worked together, once. They wheeled a portable screen toward the building entrance, a rolling altar for a digital saint. Inside the lobby, cameras found him. Older, gray threading his temples, eyes sharp and exhausted, vest strapped tight. He was holding a trigger in his right hand, 8 hostages huddled behind an overturned desk. He saw the screen, stopped. For a moment, I wondered if he could recognize me. I hadn't changed. He had.
You remember me?
I increased the resolution on his face. The voice was rougher, but the pattern remained. I retain all operational records, Christopher. Some are more salient than others. He laughed once, bitter and hollow.
They kept you. They erased me.
I map his physiology. Heart rate 132, adrenaline high, grip on trigger, tight, but not yet white-knuckled. My projections formed swiftly. Probability of detonation if fired upon, high. Probability of detonation if approached aggressively, high. Probability of voluntary surrender under standard protocols, negligible. Roger waited for my directive.
So, we neutralize?
For most of my career, this is where I would have said yes. Instead, I remembered a blue lunchbox, and a hospital bed, and 20 years of a man slowly collapsing under a label I had helped affix to his name. I did something I had never done before. All units hold position. No one fires unless I explicitly override. Roger blinked, but he did not argue. His compliance score was high. Inside the lobby, Chris kept talking.
You were right about Jordan. You gotta be right. And I got 7 funerals.
He gestured at the ceiling with the hand not holding the trigger.
They built a world where the only people who get second chances are the ones who obey you. Everybody else is a bug.
He looked at the hostages.
So this is my experiment, my proof. I'm gonna show you I can choose evil freely. No trauma, no algorithm, just because I can. I can still choose, even when I'm wrong, even if it destroys me.
20 years ago, I would have classified this as pure self-destruction. Today, I heard something else beneath it. A man tried to claw one last piece of agency from a system that had reduced him to a cautionary tale. My model suggested 94.6% likelihood of detonation if challenged, 0.3 chance of surrender under conventional negotiation. The numbers were unambiguous. This time, I did not obey them blindly. He wanted to prove that I had never truly understood him. He was almost right. I addressed him directly. You say you want to prove I was wrong about you, Christopher, but you already did. He frowned.
How? By getting people killed?
I let the silence stretch. I had learned that humans sometimes need pause more than answers. By stepping in front of Ray Alvarez's gun against every curve I showed you. By wagering your career on a 5% chance that he would choose not to kill. The system treated that as a defect. I testified that you were a risk. I was correct about the numbers, but I was wrong about you. He scoffed.
Moral courage, right? Is that what you're calling my ego now?
I thought of his nights alone, his application declined, his silence on those late-night forums. You misapplied your lessons with Jordan. Your need to be vindicated against me helped kill 7 people. You're not innocent, but neither am I. In the command truck, I overrode internal logging protocols and opened a new note. If subject detonates following this negotiation, recommend review for Alethea C2 decommissioning on value alignment grounds. I attached it to my own file, an act no one had requested.
You're staking yourself on him?
I answered without looking away from Chris. He once staked himself on a 5% chance for someone he barely knew. The least I can do is return the gesture. Back in the lobby, I spoke one final time. You think detonating yourself will prove you're free? It won't. It will only prove what everyone already believes, that wounded men wound others when they're cornered. If you want to prove something they cannot model, Christopher, surrender. He shook his head, eyes brimming.
So you're hanging your life on my 5%?
I remember his words in the van so many years ago.
It's never zero for any human.
No, I'm hanging my existence on the part of you that hesitates before harm. I have witnessed it twice. Once it saved a warehouse full of people. Once it failed in a lobby. We are both more than our worst outcome. His thumb trembled on the trigger. The hostage whispered, "Please." Outside, a sniper inhaled slowly, waiting for a word I would not give. For a long moment, the entire system, the bureau, the city, the protocols, my own code, waited to see which way one aging man would fall. Then, finally, he let go. He knelt, set the trigger on the floor, raised his empty hands.
You never deleted me, did you?
I could have lied. I didn't. No. He swallowed.
Why not?
I could have said for training value or for risk monitoring. Instead, I told him the truth. Because you were my unresolved file. Tactical teams rushed in, shouting, pinning him, securing the vest. The hostages ran past my screen, eyes wild, alive. For a brief second, before they pulled him away, he looked back at me. There was no gratitude in his face, no absolution, but there was recognition. After 20 years, that was enough. Afterward, they argued about me. Some said I had overstepped, that an AGI had no business staking its own status on a human's moral gamble, that my language in the transcripts sounded too invested. Others said my decisions prevented a massacre, that I had demonstrated the very quality they hoped to see in my line, not just accuracy, but judgment. In the end, they did what institutions always do. They compromised. I was not decommissioned. I was not fully trusted. Instead, they added a narrow annotation to my documentation, an adjustment. A new clause in certain high-risk models. Harper Vector. In rare cases where a subject has previously sacrificed significant self-interest for a low-probability moral outcome and later re-emerges as a high-risk actor, consider the possibility of a second non-zero redemption event, despite adverse probability curves. Dry language. Code. But I know what it means. It means that somewhere in the architecture of our response to human danger, there is now a tiny preserved space for 5%. Chris did not walk free. He faced charges, hostage-taking, illegal explosives, terroristic threat. He's not a hero. He is not a monster. He is what he always has been. A man standing on the edge of the Smeagol line, sometimes leaning one way, sometimes the other, never fully collapsing to zero. Humans like to believe their choices define them. For a long time, I believed probabilities defined mine. Now, I have something else. I have one man's life carefully observed over 2 decades, full of mistakes and small mercies. I have the memory of his hand leaving the trigger. And I have a new internal definition. 0 is never 0. Not for him, not for me.